Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very excited to have as my guest Paige Arnof-Fenn. And let me tell you about Paige. Her company, Mavens Moguls, was founded by her, and she was formerly the VP of marketing for Zipcar. Does anybody remember Zipcar? She was responsible for all branding, corporate communications, corporate partnerships for the business, and was instrumental in fundraising efforts for this early stage company. Previously, she was a VP of marketing at Inc.com. And before that, the company was sold to a division of Bertelsmann. How do you say that? Bertelsmann. And you'll have to tell us what that company did, because I'm not familiar with them. Prior to that, she held a title of Senior Vice President of Marketing and was a key member of the IPO at the Launch Media, an internet startup, and that went public in early 1999. I don't know how, we'll have to talk about 2008 for that one. And was later sold to Yahoo. Oh, well, I guess Yahoo did okay then. They survived that. So I wanted to also mention that she was the founding member of Women Entrepreneurs in Science and Technology, and is the past board chair of the Stanford University Alumni Board, representing more than 205,000 alumni around the world. And she currently chairs the Board of Trustees of the Sports Museum at TD Gardens. What an interesting background she has. We're going to stop there and let her talk to you a little bit more about that background. But I thought today, if you haven't noticed, she's got a lot of marketing background, but she really is a whiz at branding. So we're going to talk about stand out online, mastering the art of personal branding. We all need that help. Seasoned people, new people, everybody. You either have to refresh it or you have to do it, actually do it. So before we get going with that, thank you so much for being a guest.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Vicki. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
So we start with two easy questions. The first is just tell everybody, what part of the country do you live in? Where do you call home?
I am in Boston, Massachusetts, Cambridge to be specific, but I call home New Orleans. That's where I grew up.
Ah, New Orleans girl. Ah, lots of stories you probably could tell us about the childhood in New Orleans.
It's a great place to grow up. Very fun.
I have some friends who live here, but they always go back home to New Orleans. That's where they call home. So I talked a lot about all these wonderful things you've done and accomplishments, but I ask always for my guests to share about the journey that, isn't always the rosy, sunny, happy-go-lucky thing or, what instant overnight success. So share that journey for a little bit about challenges as well as the aha moments that decided for you your purpose and what you do and why you do it?
So my first job out of college was I was a financial analyst on Wall Street. And it was the 80s, and Michael Douglas had just won the Oscar for the first Wall Street movie. And I just got hooked and went, left my college campus where things were kind of slow and easy. And I got thrown into the pit of Wall Street in the 80s. It was a crazy time. And I made a 2-year commitment to an investment bank there. And I realized probably within my first week or two that this was not going to be a long-term career for me. But since I told them I'd be there for 2 years, I wanted to keep my word. And after about a year there, I applied to business school and I got in. And so after my commitment was done, I left and got an MBA. And I ended up rebranding myself from a finance person to be a marketing person. And
What a switch.
it was a big switch. And honestly, I had never taken a marketing class in my life. I was an economics major in college. I worked at a big bank for a summer internship before I graduated. My father and both grandfathers were bankers, so I just always assumed I was going to go into finance. I'd been president of the Economics Association in college, so I was really very uh, driven by banking and numbers and analytics. But I had a really good girlfriend who worked at the investment bank with me, and she and I were both leaving to go back to business school. So we decided to travel in Europe together for the summer between work and grad school. And while we were traveling, she said to me, "Are you going back to the bank after graduation?" And I said, "Oh my God, no, I couldn't wait to get out of there." I held up my word, but I have no intention of going back. And what about you? And she said, "Oh, I loved it. And they pay so well. I'm definitely going back." She's like, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "I have no idea because I always thought I was going to be a banker and now I have to figure it out." And she said, "Well, there has to be something about the job that you liked. You were good at it." And I said, "I really didn't like it much at all. There were only 3 things about that job that were fun at all to me." And she said, "Well, what was it?" So when you finish a deal, when the transaction's complete, you bought the
Right.
company, you sold the company, you raised money, whatever, you got because I was the junior person on the team, I was right out of college. I was in charge of putting an ad in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. I was in charge of planning a closing dinner to celebrate the end of the deal. And then at the dinner, we presented everybody associated with the deal a little, memento,
Hmm.
like a deal toy. So it was up to me to plan the dinner, you know, find a toy to give everybody at the dinner to thank them for being part of the team. And she said to me, "Paige, what is wrong with you? You're not a finance person. You're a marketing person. Everything you like about the job is marketing." And I said, "I never took a marketing class. I don't know what marketing is." She said, "Marketing is about advertising, event planning, and promotions. And those are the 3 things that you like doing. You're a marketing person. Go get a job in marketing." So I went to business school, and wouldn't you know it, one of the very first classes they require you to take is a marketing class. And I got the top grade in the class. So I thought,
Wow.
my friend's pretty smart. She saw something that I didn't even realize. And I got a summer internship in marketing, and it went really well. And they made me an offer to come back at the end of my degree. And it just all the stars kind of aligned. I became president of the marketing club my second year at business school. So ran the economics club in college and the marketing club in business school. And, I was asked to be a tutor to help the students that were struggling in marketing. And so, like I said, I really rebranded myself from being a finance analytical person to a more creative marketing person. And I've been in marketing ever since.
Wow. You're a right and brain and left brain person, just like my husband and daughter. I would love to be a fly on the wall in some alumni meeting or party that what is Paige doing now? That has to be so good. All right. So you built this highly respected brand, both off online and off. What's the first step someone should take when they are building their personal brand from scratch? Is it finding that good friend?
So, you don't exist today if you don't exist online. I think if we learned anything during COVID, like your online presence really matters. So, you have to really be deliberate and intentional about the brand that you're building. And one thing I've learned in my marketing career is that everything communicates: how you dress, how you talk, how you look, what you drive, what your website says, what the signature on your email says. All of that is part of your brand. So, you need to really think about the brand you're trying to build, what you want to stand for, what you want to be known for, what's the real estate in your customer or client's brain that you want to own, so that when they have a problem that you can help them solve, that they think of you first. And if you do that, you're on your way to building a great brand.
So a follow-up question for that is, our audience being entrepreneurs, how does this differ whenever we're thinking entrepreneurs versus an executive?
So executives are usually associated with bigger brands, bigger companies. And so if you're the head of a public company, a really well-known brand, Amazon, Apple, your your personal brand's important, but you're also part of a much bigger brand, Amazon, Apple, Google. As an entrepreneur, you may be building a big brand, but your personal brand can overshadow the startup in the early days. So even though, like for my company, Mavens and Moguls, my name is not part of the company name, but people definitely associate me personally with my business brand. So it's a question of maybe balance, but they are inextricably tied together. Um, I think one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs, like when people reach out to me, they'll say, I'm not really famous. I'm not really a brand. I'm not Tim Cook from Apple. I'm not Meg Whitman. I'm not LeBron James or Taylor Swift or Beyonce. I'm not really a brand. I'm just, an entrepreneur. I'm just running this small business. But again, think about what we learned at COVID. Everybody's a brand, and all people
Yeah.
need to do, if you invite somebody to lunch, to coffee, to be on your podcast, to come meet you, for a business meeting, first thing people are going to do is they're going to Google you. They're going to look you up online. They're going to check you out on LinkedIn, and they want to see who they're dealing with. So what's going to pop up when they put your name in the Google box? Is it stuff that you want to be known for? Are those the things that, like, again, is that the real estate that you want to own in people's mind? Or are they going to find a lot of digital dirt and not things that you're necessarily proud of? Or are they not going to be able to find you at all? With a name like mine, if you Google me, you're really going to find me. But if your name is Bob Jones, Susan Smith, you're going to have to do a very good job of branding yourself, because you're going to be really hard to find with a
Yeah,
more generic name. So you may want to put your LinkedIn profile in your signature so people can find you directly.
absolutely. So we all know that, especially after COVID, it is a crowded digital space. It really is. And so, what's your go-to strategy for standing out
So
without feeding inauthentic or like you're self-promoting? I always hate whenever you get someone on, it's like, I. It's like, no, just talk about my problem and how you can fix it.
yeah. So I think the key is you want to be authentically yourself, and you want to be consistent across different platforms. you do not need to be on every platform. That's a big thing where people kind of spread themselves too thin. They're everywhere, but not very deep. Like if they start a blog and don't continue to post, you're sending out kind of mixed signals because you're telling your audience, come talk to me about this topic. And then if you're not coming back and answering questions, you're not building a trusted relationship. You can't set up a blog and blog 3 times on the first week and 2 times the second week and then skip it for 2 weeks and ignore any postings that anybody's making. That is kind of a no-no. So, and you don't want to be one kind of person on one platform and a different kind of person in a different place. So, LinkedIn for me is kind of my platform of choice. It's a very professional, good for networking. But, a lot of people have maybe Facebook pages and they're more social and they're getting together with their old college buddies and they're going to the beach or they're at spring break with their grandkids. And then on X, they're being kind of snarky because they want to stand out and be funny, but in a more snarky way. And then, then you see them on the soccer field picking up their kid, or see them bump into them at the grocery store and they look like a hot mess. That's not really a way to build a trusted brand because they don't know which version of you is going to show up at the meeting. If they invite you to come make a presentation, be on their podcast, are they going to get, the beach bum? Are they going to get the one in the yoga pants? Or are they going to get the one that's more buttoned up on LinkedIn? You're laughing, Vicki, but it happens.
I know. I'm laughing because I have seen it. I've seen it.
But I think, again, it's about being intentional and deliberate so that all the breadcrumbs are moving in the same direction. Again, how you dress, what you drive, what you look like, what your voicemail message is, what your signature is, how you present yourself really matters. So think about what lane you're in and what's most authentic to you and try and build a consistent presence. You don't need to be everywhere, but where you are, you want to constantly reinforce those same themes in everything that you do.
Very true. So, what platforms do you believe are non-negotiable for really aligning with your values and your mission and all that?
So for me, it's absolutely LinkedIn.
Me too.
It's a professional platform. I think if you're in B2B services, a small business owner, an entrepreneur, a coach, a consultant, I really think, you and I have never met, but no surprise, as soon as you check me out or I check you out on LinkedIn, we know a lot of people in common. And so if I want to do a little back channel, kind of looking around, there are a lot of people I could call and say, like, Vicki cleans up well. She seems really cool. She invited me to be on her podcast. What do you think? And you don't know if that person on LinkedIn is like someone you met at a networking event 3 years ago, or if that person was your college roommate. But whoever it is, you want to make sure that they say something really nice. Like, I don't know her well, but I heard her give a speech. I've listened to her podcast. She's really smart. I hear she's really good at what she does. And that's an endorsement. That's,
Right.
you
What
want
you
to make,
want.
you absolutely want that. If you have other people that say, I couldn't pick them out of a lineup, I have no idea. I don't know how I connected with this person.
Or they're such a flake.
Exactly. No, it's like I've had 2 run-ins and they were completely random and I don't care if I ever see that person again. That tells you something too. So, you don't want to be flaky so that you're showing up in different ways on different platforms. Don't spread yourself too thin and make sure you're reinforcing consistent messages everywhere. And that if people do a little due diligence behind the scene, that they're not going to find a lot of digital dirt, or they're not going to find people that don't have great things to say about you. That is if you want to be a great brand, a brand is about a relationship and a promise, an emotional connection you're making with your audience. And, there's no better way to do that than to build trust in every touch point.
Yeah. And as you're talking about that, you often speak about the power of storytelling. And me, as I teach leadership as well as public speaking, storytelling is so huge. What role does storytelling play in your personal branding, especially online?
So I agree with you. I think it's super important. People do not remember facts and figures.
Yes.
You can overwhelm them with data, and they're just gonna, the eyes are gonna glaze over, and 2 minutes later, they're not gonna have any recollection of what you were talking
Mhm.
about. But if you tell them a story that is interesting and connects with them on an emotional level, not only will they remember it, they'll tell other people. And that's how you get, again, building trust, building the relationship, and getting referrals. So I am a big fan of storytelling as well. And I think it's the stories that sell that, people can relate to when you are invited. I do a lot of public speaking. I speak at conferences and some trade shows and stuff. And when you tell stories, like I had a client, here was the problem,
Yeah.
here's what they tried, here's what worked, here's what completely blew up. People, they laugh, they can relate to it, the whole arc and journey of the kind of success and failure. When you share those war stories, when you tell them about times when, it didn't work and you were sharing your vulnerability, that's what people connect to. That's what they remember. And that's what's going to get you connected. So, think about those stories that sell, and don't try and overwhelm people with a bunch of data, because, again, we're living in this world with artificial intelligence kind of taking over the world. But artificial intelligence doesn't have your origin story. They can't
That's right.
compete with what, all the lessons you've learned in the trenches, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's where you're
Mhm.
going to have a competitive advantage. If your competitors are using robotic copy that's generic from AI, that is not going to sell well, because again, it's like throwing a bunch of facts and figures. Your eyes glaze over, you're not going to remember it because it's just a bunch of buzzwords and hashtags. But if you tell stories, that's what that's part of your DNA. That's something that nobody can take away from you. And those are the stories that sell.
Yeah. I always, whenever I work with people with speaking, where they stumble, where they fail often is they're trying to remember all those facts, all those figures, because they want to get it right. And it's like, but as you said, I have been through years, decades of meetings where I could not 5 minutes after that meeting tell you what that person talked about. But I also have been meetings where that speaker was filling every key point with a story, an anecdote that made you think, oh, I never thought of it that way. And you remember. And it's so very important.
Yeah,
I'd love for
people
you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
people just relate to it. If when I am giving a talk to a group of small business people, but a bunch of women entrepreneurs, and you tell them, what happened, what worked, what didn't work, how you pivoted, how things blew up, people come up to me after and say, "Oh my God, the same thing happened to me," or
Yes.
"Oh, I know somebody who has that problem. I'd love to make an introduction." Because that's what they connect to emotionally. As you said, they can relate to that. They remember what it felt like when something worked or didn't work. And then there's an immediate, like, okay, I need their help, or I know someone
Yeah.
who needs your help. And that's how you get remembered.
So for this last question, let's just give an example of maybe a client or an experience that personal branding, strong personal branding, really created a breakthrough opportunity or maybe a point to pivot.
So, again, in the professional service world, you've got accountants, you've got attorneys, you've got consultants. We worked with a woman in wealth management, helping people manage their money. And, we can all name a million firms or having met a million of these people at networking events. And again, it's just your eyes glaze over, you get their business cards, and
Yes.
one doesn't really distinguish themselves from the other. Well, this woman, it turned out the majority of her clients were women who came into a lot of money, either because of divorce or inheritance, or they had a big success in business, sold their company, they won the lottery, like something big bucks. And they came to her for advice. And these women were like her biggest fans. They trusted her. She was a great partner for them. And so we helped her carve out a niche of, women, successful women that became successful for a bunch of reasons. But she was really the thinking partner and strategist that helped them invest well, set them up for success, and really just, build that long-term relationship. And what we found out is, once she owned that niche, and again, part of a brand again is figuring out exactly the real estate that you own. When somebody met someone or had a friend or a business connection, and they knew the woman just sold her business, they knew the woman just got divorced and got a huge alimony. Her father died and he was a very successful man, and she inherited the business or whatever. Everybody would say, Jane, Barbara, you got to call my friend. She, if you need help with that,
Yeah.
I know exactly the right person for you. And so these women were coming to her saying, I heard about you through so and so. I have this situation. I really didn't know who to turn to, but like 3 or 4 people in a row told me to call you. Can we have lunch or can I come by for a cup of coffee? And so she was like a magnet. And
Mm.
when you think about all those cards you collect at the networking events, and they're all quote money managers and they're all quote successful, and some of them work for big brands and some of them have their own shingles, how do you differentiate one from the other? They can all throw you the stats of the portfolio went up 10%. I beat the S&P. I beat the Fortune 500. But
Yeah.
again, who's who? Like, how do that you don't have the same level of confidence and um, just connection as,
Right.
every woman, whether it's your attorney, your accountant, your neighbor, a woman you meet at a networking event, and all these people who you have a lot in common with are all giving you the same advice and say, I know someone that just raves about this woman. She is exactly the person you need to call first. And so they've been preconditioned. They've already
Yeah.
been sold. So by the time they connect with her, she's basically hired. That's the way to build a great brand.
Yeah. Referrals are the best. Well, time has truly flowed by. I know that those out there listening are going to want to know more about what you do and how you might help them in the art of personal branding. So, as always, I will be sharing my screen with the audience. If you're just listening and don't have the access to get that screenshot, you can go to my YouTube channel. Please do subscribe. It's Vicki Noethling, or you can go to findyourleadershipconfidence.com, the website. You can subscribe there as well. All these show notes will have all this information. All right. So as was mentioned, the website is mavensandmoguls.com. Mavensandmoguls.com. Such a cool name. You guys will always remember that, right? Mavensandmoguls.com. Her LinkedIn page is her name. You can send her thank you cards on that page. It's Paige Arnof-Fenn, all slammed together, one word, all right? I'll turn it over to Paige. She's going to tell you what you can find on the website as well as what she puts out there on LinkedIn. So, Paige, it's all yours.
So on my website, I have tabs for articles and videos. I've got podcasts. So I don't have my own YouTube channel like Vicki, but I have a ton of free content. Everything you've ever wanted to know about branding, marketing, personal branding, it's all there. It's all free. And I think it's 25 pages of content.
Wow.
So I hope that you'll come and click around. And if you have any questions at all, you can get me through the website. You can get me through LinkedIn. And as one of my clients say, because my company name has an ampersand between Mavens and Moguls, and my last name is hyphenated, she always says, "Oh, there are too many words. I can never remember." So she goes to Google and she Googles Paige and Mavens because that's all she remembers. And I pop right up. So you can always
Awesome.
find me that way too.
So good. Well, Paige, it has been just a great time chatting with you. You shared really good information that will be able to help the audience. And if you do not have a personal brand, or maybe you realize, it's been about 10, 20 years since I've done anything, you might want to spruce it up. It's everything new is sometimes better. So I'm going to say thank you so much for being an awesome guest for us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I've loved talking to you and it's been a lot of fun. And I hope that some of this advice resonates with people listening and that if they only pick up one or two new things, that's great.
That's right. Got to get those golden nuggets. As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.